Thank you, thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with Chocolate Candy Lass. On the rail, take the points behind That Gallant Son with Chocolate Candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by Chocolate Candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off Chocolate Candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
I don't smoke weed like I used to. I'm getting old. I'm 57. I don't look 57, though. I look like a disheveled 47. I look young, but it's a bad young. People ask me, what do I do to look young? I like to jump the turnstile at the subway station. You know you're getting old when people start telling you you look good. That is not a compliment. Because they don't mean you look good, they mean you look good relative to death. Usually comes with a patronizing head tilt. You look good. I know I'm not going to live to be 100. I can tell by the strength of my urine stream I'm not going to see 75. I look young, but I pee like a dying man.
Good morning. It's Monday, Talk Radio Monday, August the 26th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and Talk Radio's America. All that and more when I get back. God, Grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Okay, thank you. Look out. Here comes Stuart.
Thank you so much. I will see you here tomorrow. Barney and Company is up next. And I hear him, and I'm going to see him right now. Stuart, welcome back, sir.
Here I am. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and good morning to you, and good morning, everyone. As you might expect, with just 70 days to go to the election, there's plenty of action in politics. Start with this. RFK Jr. backs Trump. He wants to make America healthy again. The Kennedy family disowns him. His sister Kerry says her brother has desecrated the family's values. Trump hatred on full display. Donald Trump suggests he may bow out of the September 18th debate on ABC. Trump objected to Jonathan Cahn's interview with Senator Tom Cotton. The senator correctly pointed out that Kamala Harris has not actually said publicly what her health policy is. Trump says ABC is biased. Harris says she will do a media interview by the end of this week. Does she need to? She's not short of money. She has brought in an incredible $540 million since Biden left the campaign. The president himself is on his second week of beach vacation. He's not in D.C., as this White House message suggests. Frequent question, who is really in charge of our government? Let's get to the markets. Stocks close to all-time highs on rate cut expectations. There is rising concern over Israel's preemptive strikes in Lebanon. The Dow up maybe 70, S&P up 8. The Nasdaq, though, on the downside, 18 points lower. The price of gold is doing well with all this action in the Mideast. $2,559 an ounce. Bitcoin going to 63,000. Interest rates start with the 10-year Treasury. The yield down to 3.78%. The 2-year, the yield, I believe, down a fraction, but it's at 3.90. The price of oil rising on Israel's action against Hezbollah, $77 a barrel. Gas down $3.35 for regular on average. Diesel down 1 cent at $3.69. On the show today, the Kroger-Albertson merger goes on trial today. This is the administration's backward-looking policy of trying to force prices and profits down. On full display, the Democrats' anti-business stand. If it's big, it's bad, except for government power. And throughout the day, we'll follow NVIDIA. And how they perform with Wednesday's earnings report makes a big difference to the entire market. It's down a fraction of a cent, 4 cents today. It is Monday, August the 26th, 2024.
And that was Stuart with the entertainment. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Reich of the day. Remember, Trump asked oil execs at Mar-a-Lago for $1 billion for his campaign. In return, Trump pledged to reverse environmental protections and cut their taxes. The deal would net big oil $110 billion in tax breaks, 11,000% more than the $1 billion donation. That's right. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because you have no authority, no power, and you can't win. Have a nice day, Mr. Reich. Thank you. And now, the Patriotic Short.
India has revealed their new unmanned bomber, and it could take over the world. Try not to laugh while watching this. This is the Flying Wedge Defense 200B bomber. As India's first domestically produced unmanned aircraft, the Indian military seems quite happy with their new creation. It's a long-endurance, mid-altitude drone that is produced entirely in India. But this is the MQ-9 Reaper, a U.S. drone capable of completing both surveillance and strike missions. Like the 200B, this is also a mid-altitude, long-endurance drone. However, the Reaper is not able to carry out large-scale bombing missions. So does this new unmanned bomber by India mean they are ahead of the United States? Well, not exactly. The specifications don't appear to have many similarities with a usual bomber like the B-2. It weighs only 880 pounds at takeoff and can carry up to 220 pounds in cargo. It is only equipped with precision strike weaponry and surveillance equipment. The best part is that each of these unmanned bombers only costs around $3 million.
And that was the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a little motivation.
Takes guts. You got to dig down deep to cut it out. Keep on going. again and again and again until you make it happen, because you know that it's possible. Now, what do you do during the hard times, Les? Here's what you must do. Number one is you must have faith. Paul said you must have the faith to call forth those things that be not as though they were. Judge not according to appearances. Don't judge your circumstances and the possibilities for your future based upon what you have now and because of what's going on now. No. That's not the real reality there. What you're going through, if you're going through some hard times, it has not come to stay. It has come to pass. It's all right. Now, second thing is, repeat this after me. Something you should affirm to yourself every day. Repeat this, please. No matter how bad it is, or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. Say that to yourself every day. As I used to say to myself, when I would get up in the Penobscot building and I had to go into the bathroom and bathe in the bathroom sink, I had written on the mirror that I put up there, just paste up and I read, no matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. So you got to have faith. You talk to yourself. You say that affirmation. The next step is you must have patience and engage in consistent action. Patience and engage in consistent action. See, everything does not always happen, ladies and gentlemen, when we want it to happen. It doesn't happen quickly. So in that process, they have something in the Far East called the Chinese bamboo tree. The Chinese bamboo tree, every day it has to be watered and fertilized. It's a very hard nut, and it takes 5 years of watering and fertilization every day, according to American Geographics, before it breaks through the ground. At any time, if the watering process and the nurturing and the fertilization process is stopped, the Chinese bamboo tree will die in the ground. Now, once it breaks through in that 5th year, then in 6 weeks it grows 90 feet tall. Now, the question is, does it grow 90 feet in 5 years or 6 weeks? The answer is obvious. It takes 5 years. That's how long it took to grow it, to build that foundation, to nurture it, to water it, to build the reputation, to build the credibility, to learn the market, to learn people, to learn yourself, to learn how to do it, to figure it out. That's why you must have patience and engage in consistent action. We live in a world, ladies and gentlemen, where people want instant gratification. They want it right now, but they're not willing to pay the price to do what it takes. They think it was easy. No. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's a system that if you work the system, it works if you work it. But make no mistake about it, it's hard. You are the determining factor. Here's something else. It's possible you can live your dream. No matter how bad it is, or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. It's necessary that you have goals, that you write them down, that you surround yourself with a support team, that you are creative. It's you that you must take personal responsibility to make it happen. The people that make it in this world look around for the circumstances that they want, and if they can't find them, they create them. It's hard. No, easy is not an option. However, ladies and gentlemen, what you will discover is that it's worth it. It's worth it. I suggest to you, if you want to become diamond, write down 5 reasons of why it is worth it for you to become a diamond, to experience that level of achievement. What is it that will give you the drive? What is it that will ignite the courage in you to get up and come back again and again and again? How is it that you would be able, what reasons that can tap into that deep down feeling that goes to your gut, that no matter how many times you get knocked down, that you're coming back? What is it? Write it down. When I started and left Miami pursuing my dream, because I knew that as long as you work for someone else, they are controlling your destiny. I didn't want anybody signing my paycheck but me. I knew that it was going to be difficult. I knew it was going to be hard. But every time I thought about giving up, and there were times I did, because where I am, ladies and gentlemen, it's a long shot. You think being a diamond is a long shot? This is a miracle. This is a long shot. And I had people laughing at me. Les, you're talking about being a motivational speaker? You failed twice in school. They put you back from the 5th grade into the 4th grade, and you failed in the 8th grade? You've never worked for a major corporation? And you are going to become independently wealthy. Right. They laugh. They're going to laugh at you. People are going to laugh at you. But let me tell you, I believe in revenge like Frank Sinatra. He said the best revenge is massive success. It's a long shot. Being here with you today in this dome in Atlanta, it's a long shot. But I kept running toward my dream. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop running toward your dream. You can live your dream as you hold on to that dream. There are moments when you're going to doubt yourself. There are rough times are going to come, but they have not come to stay. They have come to pass. It's not going to be easy. As you go toward the future, begin to know that you have greatness within you. Begin to envision yourselves to reach your goals. If you want a thing bad enough, go out and fight for it. Work day and night for it. Give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it. What if we have that kind of attitude? The cause repossessed. Nobody believes in you. You've lost again and again and again. The lights are cut off, but you're still looking at your dream, reviewing it every day and say to yourself, it's not over until I win.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Daily Stoic.
The enemy of happiness. It is quite impossible to unite happiness with a yearning for what we don't have. Happiness has all that it wants, and resembling the well-fed, there shouldn't be hunger or thirst. Epictetus, Discourses, 3.24.17. I'll be happy when I graduate, we tell ourselves. I'll be happy when I get this promotion, when this diet pays off, when I have the money that my parents never had. Conditional happiness is what psychologists call this kind of thinking. Like the horizon, you can walk for miles and miles and never reach it. You won't even get any closer. Eagerly anticipating some future event, passionately imagining something you desire, looking forward to some happy scenario. As pleasurable as these activities might seem, they ruin your chance at happiness here and now. Locate that yearning for more, better, someday, and see it for what it is, the enemy of your contentment. Choose it or your happiness. As Epictetus says, the two are not compatible.
And that was The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
How do you propagate the faith? With words? Yes, I believe in that, as I've done a lot of that in my life. But above all, you propagate Christ, by being conformed to him. When we do what he did, we bear other people's burdens. We take up the cross every day. When we do that, we become the most effective ambassadors possible for Christ. He uses people like us. I mean, we're unworthy vessels, God knows. But he uses us. So if someone sees you bearing the burdens of another, taking up your cross willingly, loving Jesus above your own life, well, he'll receive Christ through you.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, let those who do care about the future, those willing to crusade for a perfect society, realize that the new radicals are the fighters for capitalism. It's Ayn Rand, unquote. And that's Ayn Rand in the chapter for the New Intellectual from the book, The New Intellectual. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the 33 Strategies of War. And this is chapter 32, Dominate while seeming to be submissive.
Interpretation. Gandhi was a deceptively clever strategist whose frail, even saintly appearance constantly misled his adversaries into underestimating him. The key to any successful strategy is to know both one's enemy and oneself, and Gandhi, educated in London, understood the English well. He judged them to be essentially liberal people who saw themselves as upholding traditions of political freedom and civilized behavior. This self-image, though riddled with contradictions, as indicated by their sometimes brutal behavior in their colonies, was deeply important to the English. The Indians, on the other hand, had been humiliated by many years of subservience to their English overlords. They were largely unarmed and in no position to engage in an insurrection or guerrilla war. If they rebelled violently, as other colonies had done, the English would crush them and claim to be acting out of self-defense. Their civilized self-image would suffer no damage. The use of nonviolence, on the other hand, an ideal and philosophy that Gandhi deeply valued, and one that had a rich tradition in India, would exploit to perfection the English reluctance to respond with force unless absolutely necessary. To attack people who were protesting peacefully would not jibe with the Englishman's sense of his own moral purity. Made to feel confused and guilty, the English would be paralyzed with ambivalence and would relinquish the strategic initiative. The Salt March is perhaps the quintessential example of Gandhi's strategic brilliance. First, he deliberately chose an issue that the British would consider harmless, even laughable. To respond with force to a march about salt would have given an Englishman trouble. Then, by identifying his apparently trivial issue in his letter to Irwin, Gandhi made space for himself in which to develop the march without fear of repression. He used that space to frame the march in an Indian context that would give it wide appeal. The religious symbolism he found for it had another function as well. It heightened the paralysis of the British, who were quite religious themselves in their own way and could not countenance repressing a spiritual event. Finally, like any good showman, Gandhi made the march dramatically visual and used the press to give it maximum exposure. Once the march gained momentum, it was too late to stop it. Gandhi had sparked a fire, and the masses were now deeply engaged in the struggle. Whatever Irwin did at this point would make the situation worse. Not only did the Salt March become the model for future protests, but it was clearly the turning point in India's struggle for independence. Many people today are as ambivalent as the English were about having power and authority. They need power to survive, yet at the same time, they have an equally great need to believe in their own goodness.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War. Back in a minute. Thank you. And if you're a Democrat, you should vote Republican because psychological internalization is one of the central topological shifts of violence in modernity. Violence occurs in the form of a conflict within the psyche. Destructive tensions are born internally rather than discharged externally. The front is no longer located outside the ego, but within it. Civilization, therefore, obtains mastery over the individual's dangerous desire for aggression by weakening and disarming it, and by setting up an agency within him to watch over it like a garrison in a conquered city. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Chapter 16 of Talk Radio's America, The Titans of Talk 1, Bipartisanship 0.
16. The Titans of Talk 1, Bipartisanship 0. When it comes to public policy, talk radio has left its most indelible mark on immigration reform, or the lack thereof. The issue fit talk radio perfectly. Complicated policy specifics could be distilled into the simple, black and white themes talk radio has long since made its own. Hosts could rail against soft on crime, weak on national security liberals who rewarded lawbreaking. And hosts could trumpet American culture, the well-being of American workers, and the preservation of the Republican Party. Repeated attempts at immigration reform also gave hosts multiple chances to take aim at compromise measures supported by both party establishments. Elite bipartisanship was inherently suspect in talk radio's world. An easy bogeyman, given the framing of Washington insiders and dealmakers as enemies of hosts and listeners' shared values. Momentum for a comprehensive legislative solution to the vexing, multifaceted problem of illegal immigration started building on Capitol Hill in 2001. President Bush seemed open to a path toward legal status for undocumented immigrants, and the Senate odd couple of arch-conservative Kansan Sam Brownback and liberal lion Ted Kennedy was working on a legislative fix. Brownback saw supporting immigration reform as a profoundly conservative endeavor because, in his view, reform would spur economic growth and fulfill biblical injunctions to care for orphans, strangers, and foreigners. But 9/11 changed the electorate's mood. Before the attacks, nativists had been struggling to find a message that connected with voters. As longtime immigration reform activist Marshall Fitz put it, after 9/11, nativists' fear of the other translated into national security terms. Anti-reform groups ran ads featuring the hijackers in the towers, driving home visceral warnings about invading immigrants and the dangers they posed. Conservative media joined the fear-mongering, helping to move public opinion against the sorts of legislative proposals Washington was considering. Fitz and other reform advocates devoted all their time to combating misinformation disseminated by conservative media, including Fox News, then CNN host Lou Dobbs, and local and national talk radio. This new political climate killed the nascent bipartisan immigration effort in the Senate. After President Bush won re-election in 2004, he selected Social Security reform over immigration reform as his top domestic priority. Nonetheless, the Senate again tried to inch immigration reform forward. But talk radio passionately decried what hosts viewed as amnesty. During the summer of 2005, the Minutemen, a group whose members advocated for border security and went on border patrols, became a staple on talk radio and cable television. Hosts left the studio to MC events and encouraged listeners to rally against illegal immigration. Hosts also freely blasted President Bush on the issue. Roger Hedgecock took his advocacy a step further by organizing the now annual Hold Their Feet to the Fire lobbying trip in partnership with the Federation of American Immigration Reform, FAIR, a restrictionist group. Hosts from across the country descended on Washington with several hundred listener lobbyists trained by FAIR. The hosts broadcast live from a makeshift radio row, and the citizen lobbyists met with legislators and their staff. As early as 2005, these trips appeared to pay dividends. Host Lars Larson told Talkers magazine that when that year's trip arrived in Washington, the visitors learned to their dismay that the Real ID Act was dead. The legislation, which established federal standards for state-issued driver's licenses and other ID cards, and prohibited federal agencies from accepting state IDs that did not meet these standards, was a priority for immigration hardliners. By the second day of lobbying and broadcasting, the bill was heading into law, with support from President Bush and even some Democrats. In December 2005, the Republican-controlled House, partly inspired by talk radio's activism, passed a punitive enforcement-only bill that criminalized violations of immigration law, such as being in the country illegally. The bill also funded enhanced border security. None of its provisions offered benefits for guest workers or a pathway to legalization for those already in the United States. The bill sparked a massive backlash. Opponents, some organized by Latino radio, marched in the street. The spring of 2006 featured a duel between liberal reformers and immigration hawks, supported by Latino and conservative media respectively. Each camp jockeyed to influence the ongoing legislative debate in the Senate. The rhetoric on conservative radio was stern. Liddy warned his audience that the Senate was trying to shove an amnesty bill down their throats and urged listeners to call their senators. He accused President Bush of disingenuously supporting renewable green cards for guest workers that would allow them to stay in the country forever. The host also went after Bush for supposedly encouraging illegal immigrants to have anchor babies, children whose birthright citizenship would eventually lead to regularized status for everyone in their family. An outside group bought commercial time on one of Liddy's Tennessee affiliates to urge Bill Frist, the Tennessee senator and Republican majority leader, to support effective immigration enforcement legislation. The ad ominously warned Frist not to back down. Limbaugh spent more than 2 months criticizing the Senate bill and Republican motivations. Reform? My rear end. Even if we stipulate that a guest worker program helps to deal with people who are here illegally, how does that help stem the flow of future illegals? It does just the opposite. It's going to increase it. The illegal influx continues, and the politics of this has to make you laugh. It cracks me up. It probably makes you laugh too. They argue that we need to attract this vote. You know, the best vote, the highest Hispanic vote total George W. Bush ever got, was about 44% when he ran for governor of Texas. So if we continue to get a smaller percentage of the vote by a growing community in this country, will we win elections? We ought to be talking about taking our principles to all people regardless of race or religion and win the day with those arguments, not by pandering and embracing illegal behavior. You've got some elites in Washington who are just hell-bent on this election angle, and they're worried that too much focus on keeping the illegal immigrants out of the country will make the Republican Party a minority party for the long term. And they call people like me nativists. Yeah, nativists, xenophobes, racist, what have you. I mean, it's quite interesting. But what good is being a Republican or a conservative if you're going to throw it all out in order to attract certain votes from people who have grown up and been weaned on an entitlement mentality and expect that? Limbaugh argued that a cabal of moderate Republican dealmakers conspiring with leadership was using secrecy and subterfuge to get the bill passed. A clear suggestion that they were trying to pull a fast one on conservative members and voters. I am told that basically 5 Republican senators were holed up last night trying to put together some sort of face-saving compromise. Those senators are McCain, Hagel, Specter, Mel Martinez, and Frist. And the other Republican senators had no idea what they were doing. The initial bill that came out of this committee was 500 pages long, and they're trying to push it through today without anybody having had a chance to read it. That's why you're seeing stories that Republicans are prepared to filibuster their own bill. Yes, Republicans are preparing to filibuster this thing if it comes up for a vote, because they don't know what's in it, and they weren't included in the hole-in-the-wall gang that was working on this last night to put this together. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this, he concluded. Security is secondary. The rule of law is secondary. All these clowns are doing is blatantly buying votes by making more citizens. In spite of talk radio's opposition and some initial procedural defeats, in May 2006, the Senate passed 62-36, a bipartisan immigration reform bill sponsored by Kennedy and McCain. But the bill was vastly different from the House's immigration bill, and the House refused to impanel a conference committee to hash out the incompatibilities. Instead, House leaders intended to use the issue to rally the conservative base during the 2006 midterms. The campaign was a crushing loss for Republicans as Democrats gained control of the House and Senate. That seemingly made 2007 the moment for immigration reform. Both the Democratic majority in Congress and the Republican president supported it. A bipartisan group in the Senate, along with the Bush administration, spent months fashioning a new bill. According to Joel Kaplan, the deputy White House chief of staff, the specter of talk radio hovered in the background. Republicans tried to address the right's objections to the 2006 bill, understanding that if they didn't, their effort faced a potentially fatal response on the AM dial. In deference to the Republican base, McCain assumed a lesser role in negotiations, a sign of problems that lay ahead for his 2008 presidential campaign. In his place was Arizona colleague John Kyle, who thought the 2006 bill was a very bad piece of legislation that went way too far in terms of amnesty. Kyle believed that, with Democrats controlling Congress, someone like him needed to get involved to shape a bill that was as benign as possible and that could otherwise achieve Republican objectives. Graham joined the process, with Kennedy continuing to take the lead for Democrats. The negotiations generated real optimism from President Bush and congressional leaders. Larson recalled an event where the president confidently told onlookers he would see them at the signing ceremony. But the bill failed on the Senate floor, in large part because conservative radio hosts, their guests, and pressure groups advertising on talk programs galvanized a huge grassroots outcry against the bill. Opponents blasted the bill for providing amnesty to illegal immigrants without adequately securing the border. Speaking for most talk hosts, Limbaugh declared that the bill would fundamentally and perhaps permanently alter American society for the worse. He dubbed the legislation the Comprehensive Destruction of the Republican Party Act of 2007. It's an utter disaster, he said, and it must be defeated. There's no middle ground here. According to one Senate Republican staffer who watched the process unfold, talk radio was able to exploit a tactical blunder on the part of the negotiating group. After agreeing on the framework of the bill, the senators held a press conference to explain its provisions in general terms. But there was not yet any legislative language indicating how the federal code would change. Talk radio filled in the details with its own interpretation of what the bill would do. True, hosts and listeners probably would have pilloried the bill as amnesty regardless. But, as another staffer conceded, the drafting process was a nightmare, producing a sloppy product that left the effort vulnerable to attacks. The onslaught began in March, 2 months before the Senate even debated the bill. Kyle, Lott, Chambliss, and other Republicans found their offices inundated with negative feedback. Lott received death threats. Lott and Chambliss liked to answer the phones themselves, so they knew conservatives were apoplectic. When Chambliss informed swearing, raging callers that they were talking to the senator and started to tell him about the bill, he could hear them gasping for air. They were prepared to eviscerate a staffer, but they never expected to talk to the senator himself. Utah Republican Senator Bob Bennett paid staffers a bonus for handling the volume of vituperative phone calls he received as the Senate debated the bill. In May, with the Senate debate now underway, Hedgecock brought Hold Their Feet to the Fire 2007 to Washington. The week-long extravaganza included more than 40 hosts who reached 75% of the national radio market, imploring listeners to call senators. On the last day, there were enough callers to shut down the Capitol Hill switchboard. 350 citizen lobbyists descended on Capitol Hill. They also used nascent social media to swamp senators with messages. According to a Pew study, between mid-May and mid-June, talk radio hosts devoted 23% of their airtime to denouncing the immigration bill. Crucially, in the middle of the debate, Congress jetted off on its annual Memorial Day recess. Before the recess, the bill's supporters believed that 60 senators were prepared to vote for it, which would have been enough to shatter a filibuster. The recess, however, gave grassroots conservatives and conservative media an opportunity to demonstrate to senators just how unpopular the bill was with their constituents. Some liberal groups, such as Organized Labor, had other reasons to oppose the bill. They also used the recess to air their displeasure to senators visiting home. When the Senate resumed debate after the recess, the bill's prospects had dimmed. Supporters found themselves unable to secure a 60th vote. Chambliss and fellow Georgia Senator Johnny Isakson co-sponsored the bill, but after withering attacks from talk radio, an outcry from constituents, they joined the opposition. Chambliss admitted that he and Isakson could have done more to communicate with constituents about the bill. The information vacuum gave opponents, who would have rejected any immigration reform, and some of whom profited from their opposition, an opportunity to fill in gaps. They did just that, taking over the airwaves with what Chambliss called the magic word, amnesty. During the debate, Chambliss and Isakson flew to Atlanta for the Georgia Republican Convention. Such was the buzz surrounding the bill that, on the drive to the convention site, Chambliss's wife called to ask him what in the world he had done to infuriate people. In his convention speech, Chambliss addressed the issue directly, prompting 5 convention attendees in the back of the room to boo him. The heckling made national headlines. One of the hecklers called Chambliss the next week to apologize. Senators had little success quelling the discontent on talk radio. Chambliss consulted with Atlanta-based Bortz, but as the senator's spokeswoman put it, Bortz popped us pretty good. When Kyle tried to engage old friends on talk radio, many no longer wanted to talk to him. The hosts on Phoenix station KFYI, where Kyle appeared regularly, were at least courteous enough to allow him on for a constructive conversation, even as they disagreed. Kyle also conversed with Hugh Hewitt. The host was convalescing from a back injury when the Senate negotiators unveiled the bill. Without much else to do, he read page after page of the text. Hewitt concluded that it provided blanket amnesty and proposed changes to Kyle. The senator turned around and introduced several of them as amendments. But that didn't mollify opponents in conservative media. Michael Savage bluntly warned senators, "We will deport you from office." Conservative talkers also skewered guests from the Bush administration. Ed Gillespie, a veteran Republican Party hand and Bush counselor, had to survive some tough interviews. Deputy Press Secretary Tony Fratto equated his dealings with hosts to whack-a-mole because there were a lot more of them than there were of us. At times, Fratto said, it seemed like hosts just wanted to attack guests trying to sell or explain the plan, not engage them. You could be explaining it all you want, and they'd just call it amnesty. At the height of the debate, Lott's frustration boiled over. Talk radio was running America, he complained. We have to deal with that problem. Hosts and listeners pounced. Limbaugh used Lott's comments to reframe the debate over the amnesty bill as a battle between Washington and the people. Supposed conservatives were selling out the base, and they know it. So you got a Republican talking about talk radio the way liberals talk about talk radio, which tells you, it tells me, what the real objective of most elected officials in Washington is anyway. It's to perpetuate themselves and their jobs and to spend money. Ratcheting up the pressure, Limbaugh read on the air the names of each Republican senator who voted to cut off debate. Heading into the climactic floor vote, leaders had commitments from 59 senators to vote to cut off debate. But once it became clear that the last vote wasn't forthcoming, leaders released senators from their pledges. Only 46 senators voted to cut off debate, and the bill foundered. It was a sign of how many senators, even some supporters of the bill, didn't want to be publicly associated with it. Hold Their Feet to the Fire took credit on behalf of talk radio. Its website declared, Hold Their Feet to the Fire successfully defeated the McCain-Kennedy-Bush amnesty bill in 2007, which was hatched in secret and sprung on the American public at the last minute, with no time for review, even by lawmakers. The bill died when talk radio roared, and activists fanned out across the Capitol, and citizens flooded their lawmakers' switchboard. This assessment was self-serving and overstated. Nonetheless, talk radio's uncompromising position does seem to have grown more popular in the Senate. The numbers tell the story. In 2006, 23 of 55 Senate Republicans voted for immigration reform. In 2007, the bill moved significantly to the right, but got less Republican support. Only 12 of 49 Republicans voted yes on cloture. It is reasonable to suspect that some of the same Republicans who backed the 2006 bill would have been even happier with the 2007 version. Yet, 10 of them flipped and voted against the 2007 bill. While some likely had pledged to vote for cloture, had their votes been potentially decisive, the picture was striking all the same. It was clear to many observers that conservative media deserved credit for the outcome, or blame, depending on one's position. Conservative media accepted nothing less than total opposition, and members of Congress had good reason to toe the line. Congressman David Dreyer learned as much. Back in 2004, star Los Angeles hosts John Cobelt and Ken Champeau had taken the California Republican to task for his immigration stance. On one show, they selected 5 Republican House members with bad voting records on illegal immigration for a Survivor-style tournament in which the hosts and their listeners would pick one to vote off the island. Dreyer, who supported a relatively free flow of goods and people across the borders, got the nod. Cobelt and Champeau invited the 5 lawmakers to appear on their show, but Dreyer declined rather than be forced to back off his positions or else be skewered for them. While immigration was a critical political issue for Cobelt and Champeau, their beef with Dreyer was also about something more fundamental. They claimed that he told constituents one thing and voted another way. In Cobelt's words, Dreyer was a hypocrite, as blatantly two-faced as a politician could be. The hosts urged Dreyer's defeat in that year's midterms and invited his Democratic opponent, Cynthia Matthews, to join them at a live broadcast outside of one of Dreyer's offices. Many of Matthews' volunteers were Republicans. Dreyer eventually won the race, but not without a tougher fight than he had anticipated. Forced back on his heels, he spent the last 2 weeks of the campaign promising a new focus on immigration. He even ran ads and had robocalls featuring Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, with characteristic cheesiness and bravado, proclaimed Dreyer tough as nails on illegal immigrants. The congressman had the worst showing of his career, then 25 years strong. He outspent Matthews dramatically and beat her back 53.6% to 42.8% in a year when President Bush won re-election and Republicans gained seats in both houses of Congress. The contrast to 2006 places the power of talk radio in sharp relief. That year, Cobelt and Champeau left Dreyer alone, and he won a rematch with Matthews 57% to 37.9% during a Democratic wave election. In many ways, the revolt against the 2007 immigration bill foreshadowed the right's response to the Obama presidency, especially his signature health care legislation and another attempt at a bipartisan immigration bill. Like the members of Hold Their Feet to the Fire and its fellow travelers, Tea Party activists would style their movement as a populist, conservative uprising dead set against any elite-driven plans they perceived as threatening their vision of America. It didn't matter who supported these plans, Democrats, Republican elites, business interests, or all of the above. Talk radio was at the center of this fray, exhorting these movements, stoking their fury, and helping to channel their passion into legislative advocacy campaigns. The outcome, derailing a major bill, was novel in 2007, but it would become familiar over the next decade, as both partisan and bipartisan legislation fell to uprisings on the right. Talk radio's role in knocking down an initiative cherished by President Bush, the most powerful Republican in Washington, offered the best evidence yet of the medium's independence from the party apparatus. Talk radio was a power player in its own right, pushing its own agenda and demanding that elected officials fall in line or suffer the consequences.
And that was Chapter 16, The Titans of Talk 1, Bipartisanship 0, from Talk Radio's America, How an Industry Took Over a Political Party That Took Over the United States, by Brian Rosenwald, and read by Christopher Grove. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.